What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are talking through a Baltimore Ravens team preview. The question we have here, can Lamar Jackson win another MVP? He's probably the least talked about MVP candidate of all time. It's very strange. It's almost like everyone forgot that he did win MVP, but we're going to talk through everything from the 2023 season, the notable roster moves, projected offense and defense, do some schedule predictions, and go through some fantasy projections as well before we get out of here. And we're going to start with the 2023 recap. They were 13-4. They were a top 5 unit on both sides of the ball. They were first in points per game on defense. They lost in the AFC Championship. Lamar did win that, first playoff game, which he just hasn't gotten through the Chiefs. That's been the problem. The Titans gave him trouble as well back in the day. But league MVP Lamar Jackson, like we just talked about. But another big moment in their offseason here was losing Mike McDonald, one of the most revolutionary defensive coordinators, who's now headed to Seattle to kind of take that defense to another level. What were your thoughts on 2023, Randy?
Fantastic year. It felt like it was almost let's full send to try and win this year, and they had every chance to. It felt like the Chiefs were a little bit on the ropes, and then they figured themselves out. Bengals, huge injury with Joe Burrow. Bills really weren't playing up to their standard. They had every chance to win this. Chiefs beat them. I mean, that's how it is. I feel like we were saying that for a decade with the Patriots, where it was just the Colts were right there. But the Colts did break through, and maybe this is that year for the Ravens after a disappointing end of the season.
Yeah, I will say it's much more challenging now, losing, like I said, one of the most revolutionary defensive coordinators in the game, but also they lost a lot of pieces. So they did bring in Derrick Henry. They brought in Deontay Hardy, Josh Jones, Nate Wiggins, Roger Rosengarten, Adisa Isaac. A lot of what they're relying on is this rookie class. So a lot of probably impact rookies here, but they lost two running backs. J.K. Dobbins was kind of inevitable. Odell Beckham Jr. is not back. Devin Duvernay's not back. Patrick Queen's not back. Morgan Moses is gone. Geno Stone is gone. Jadeveon Clowney is gone. All of these guys on the lost list were starters at some point. Duvernay, obviously, on the special team side, but this was a massive loss for this offseason. Like, I don't know if a team had this much turnover throughout the 2024 offseason.
Definitely not another good team. I guess the Bills would be the only close one.
Yeah, but that was like a choice. I don't necessarily think that this was all a choice.
Yeah.
I think some of it was. But moving on from the offensive line seemed like something that they wanted to do, even though as we go into the depth chart, I don't necessarily know what the plan was here.
I mean, Zeitler is getting a lot older. Morgan Moses hit or miss there, and John Simpson obviously 2 years ago was cut by the Raiders. So,
yeah,
does he deserve his contract that he just got because of how he just played? Sure, but is it like a all-pro guard? No.
Yeah, that's right. It's just, man, that's a lot. Let's look at the offensive depth chart now. So got Ronnie Stanley still at left tackle. That was a little iffy last year. Tyler Linderbaum anchoring at center. Andrew Voorhees, Ben Cleveland as your two guards. Roger Rosengarten is probably going to start as a day two rookie. He'll be battling with Daniel Falele. I think Rosengarten should win that battle. At wide receiver, we have Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar, and Rashad Bateman back. All reports are that Rashad Bateman has taken a step forward, and it seems like the Ravens kind of watched the film over the back half and determined that they didn't need Odell back because Rashad Bateman had kind of already taken that step forward. So I'm curious to see how they incorporate him into the offense. Mark Andrews will be back healthy. Isaiah Likely is still going to be a big part of this offense. They've always got good tight end depth. And then the running back room is interesting with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, who probably won't be back at the beginning of the year. Looks like it'll be a few weeks at least. And then Rasheen Ali, their incoming rookie, who I think was probably of value because of the pre-draft injury. I think he probably would have gone a little bit higher had he not torn his bicep at the Senior Bowl or right before the Senior Bowl. So what's your opinion on this roster right now?
Yeah, I mean, you got rid of a little bit of the older players, and you're taking a lot of upside shots especially offensive line. I think Patrick McCarry will also be competing for right tackle.
Mhm.
Basically, those three with Rosengarten and Falele, or whoever's best wins it. Cleveland should basically give you what you were getting at guard, and hopefully Voorhees steps up a bit. And you never know if a tackle might swing in at guard too, if that's going to be your best option. I think we're at least going to have the same quality of offensive line as you had last year, and there's a lot more upside here. Wide receiver wise, it feels like it's a step down, but again, if Bateman really is showing the improvement that we were hoping for, you got Walker to really try and take the top off the defense to allow Zay Flowers to really play his true role, which isn't just trying to burn defenses, even though his speed does say that, but he's much better at the comebacks and all the different route trees, and hopefully we can stop him from taking all the slant routes and dying. So, because
Mhm.
he is not a big boy, but he is very, very talented. And Mark Andrews back just absolutely reshapes this offense into what it's supposed to be. I do think the offense will be humming really early. Henry and Hill really taking up the early snaps, and then I do think Ali and Mitchell will be taking over that role and definitely the passing role once we get going here, saving Henry for the playoffs if they
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get to that. I think they'll make it. Well, let's see how we do there when we get to the schedule predictions. But yeah, I think adding Derrick Henry is going to bring a new dynamic to this offense too. They haven't really had a guy that they can turn around and give the ball to 20 times. Gus Edwards was kind of that, but also not as effective as
Yeah.
Derrick Henry will be. And I think Henry also mitigates some of those bad offensive line or potentially like worse offensive line play at the beginning, especially because we've already seen him kind of do that with the Titans with a really, really rough offensive line last year, and it really hasn't been good in quite a few years. So overall, this isn't a bad group. Like it's kind of they're running it back minus the offensive line, but adding Henry to me is like one of those impactful. This is how you win a playoff game. So um, like I said, we'll see if you have them in the playoffs. Projected defense. So this side didn't lose as much. I think Patrick Queen is a big loss, especially going to a division rival. But they added Roquan Smith, kind of anticipating that, I believe. Um, Edge rushers, Adafe Owe, Kavanoy, they've got really good depth there. David Ojabo, Adisa Isaac's going to rotate in. Your defensive front is going to be Broderick Washington, Michael Pierce, Travis Jones, Justin Matabike. That's a really good group. That's probably one of the best groups in the NFL. The corner room is pretty rough. So Nate Wiggins, Brandon Stevens, Marlon Humphrey are slated as your starters. You've also got Arthur Mollett, TJ Tampa, Jalen Armour Davis kind of working in there. I think what really helps that though is Kyle Hamilton is probably a top 3 safety, maybe top 1 safety in the NFL right now, and so he's got that ability to kind of make up for some of those discrepancies or problems in the cornerback room. And then Marcus Williams is still there as your free safety. Randy, what's your you hesitated when I said it's not a terrible
I
group.
mean,
What's going on?
they did obviously. There's some ups and downs with Patrick Queen. Obviously, Roquan Smith was better. Hopefully, Trenton Simpson can pick up that loss there. But you did lose, I believe, your first and second leading sackers, or first and third, and Jadavion Clowney and Tyus Bowser,
Mhm.
uh, Delshon Phillips, Geno Stone, Rocky Sin, Ronald Darby, all starters, rotational starters. Definitely lost a good amount here. In the secondary, obviously, Kyle Hamilton's going to kind of really help that. Hopefully, TJ Tampa can get on the field and really bolster the corner room. That's obviously lacking with a few losses here. But again, you were talking about this during the draft process. Yeah, you have a Dafe Away who's been a little bit injured. David Ojabo coming off an injury, coming into his rookie year, hasn't really done anything. Noah, I believe, is 34, 35. Adisa Isaac, another rookie. They added to the group with a rookie, but they lost top people.
Mhm.
So I do think, and then again, you lose the defensive coordinator who helped bring this back to the number 1 defense, while they still have the biggest pieces in like Matabuke and Pierce uh, and Hamilton. Obviously, there's still some concern there for me.
Yeah, I think losing Mike McDonald is bigger than any of the pieces that they lost, to be completely honest.
Yeah,
There's a really good article on The Athletic that talks about how uh, the pressure looks that they were showing, it was revolutionary. It's something that the NFL defenses are copying now because you're bringing pressure from your secondary, which is why I think they went in a different direction with the corner room. I think a guy like TJ Tampa, a guy like Nate Wiggins, who's fast enough to get into the backfield, can he tackle? I don't think so, but he can at least apply the pressure. Stuff like that. I think they're still going to be creative because obviously the build of that defense is still there, but the play calling that Mike McDonald had was phenomenal as well, and that's important. So I'm curious to see if this defense can keep it up. I don't anticipate they'll be the number one defense in the NFL this year. I still think this could be a top 10 to 12 unit, which I think could be good enough if the offense takes a step with Henry on the other side too.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the schedule predictions. So, it's a tough opening week. I believe they're the Thursday night game. They open the season. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do, I believe.
Okay. They get the Chiefs, so you have a tough one, and they're at Arrowhead, so that's a tough one. But then you kind of the first 5 games are pretty rough in general. So versus Las Vegas should be a win, but at Dallas, versus Buffalo, at Cincinnati is a tough stretch. Then you kind of ease up a little bit in the middle here, and then you finish off with. I mean, you have the Giants in Week 15, but the final 3 games are going to be really tough and probably determine some playoff seeding versus Pittsburgh, at Houston, versus Cleveland. I have them at 12-5. I have them as the number 2 seed in the AFC. Randy, why don't you tell the Baltimore Ravens fans what you think of their team?
I think they're a great team. However, I do have them unfortunately losing tiebreakers, and at 10-7 being the 8th seed in the AFC and missing the playoffs. Third in the division as well. Obviously ahead of Pittsburgh, but it's close. They're a decent team, but for what it's worth, I have the Browns at 10-7 and the Bengals at 11-6. So it's not like I have the Ravens losing out. They have the 4th toughest strength of schedule, 11.5 win total over under. Obviously, the favor is on the over, but still, I don't think this team is necessarily as good as last year, and I really am kind of banking this on the strength of schedule and the defense starting out slow. I do think they are a favorite at -260 to make the playoffs and to win the division, with the first best odds to win the division, third best odds to win the Super Bowl, and favored in 14 out of 17 games. So I understand. It's just they have a very tough strength schedule. Anytime it's AFC North, pretty much everyone's going to be 3-3 in that division. One of them might be 4-2. This could be one of the years that people are assuming that someone like the Steelers are going to be 2-4, and that's never safe to assume something like that with that coaching staff and the leadership they have. All the easy games they have, I mean, Commanders, yeah, they should win. Broncos, they should win. Chargers, they should win. They should beat the Steelers at least once. Should beat the Giants. They should beat the Raiders. The last time that they were supposed to beat the Raiders, that didn't happen either. So they do not have easy games here. And 1 or 2 of these losses I have are going to be the difference and will be Christian's outcome of obviously 12 wins. I think that's easily possible, but the way I have it doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I set you up for that, but
Yeah,
really the main thing is that we understand that the Ravens are heavy favorites, but we do think for ourselves here, we don't just kind of go with consensus with everything that we do on this channel. So Randy having them out of the playoffs, I don't think that's unreasonable. I have the Browns out of the playoffs, which we'll get to here shortly. Like I have the Jaguars out of the playoffs, so there will be good teams that miss the playoffs. I think the justification behind it makes sense. I think that they can overcome some of those things, and that's why I have them at 12 wins. But this is a team that's either way, they're kind of borderline playoffs. But every team, it comes down to 1 or 2 games, right? And if you have them losing those 2 games, it's pretty simple to see a path where they miss.
Yeah, AFC's loaded.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, let's get into some fantasy projections. So the question, can Lamar Jackson win another MVP? I didn't project it. I didn't project a stat line that would justify him winning another MVP, but I also think that it's worth noting that he kind of came. I mean, we talked about it throughout the season, and then everyone was kind of like, "Oh, he might be able to do it," and then just kind of came out of nowhere. Had an MVP like season. I have him at 4,059 yards, 29 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, QB4 in fantasy football. I do think that there is a path for him to have a super successful year again, but they are the weapons. You have to assume that Henry is going to take a little bit more of that rushing share, which is what I have projected here. I do have him at 676 yards on the ground as well. So it's a good amount, but I don't think that it's going to be quite what we've seen every year from Lamar Jackson. Uh, Derrick Henry, 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 24 receptions through the air, RB9. One of the better values, I think, in fantasy football right now. This might be a little up there, but also if you watch Derrick Henry, he's not really losing much. Like he's still got all the juice. We've thought that he might lose it here soon because of the workload that he's taken, and he just doesn't. So, different specimen. I have Rasheen Ali as their second leading running back at RB65. And then I have Zay Flowers at wide receiver 33, Rashad Bateman at wide receiver 70. I know people are going to be upset about that, but I'm a Rashad Bateman fan. Randy could tell you. I've been as high on him as anyone, but I also am not going to buy into OTA talk right now. I might adjust this before the season, but I just can't see a path where Rashad Bateman's a fantasy viable wide receiver outside of anything like a flex play. And Mark Andrews, tight end too. Just over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think he's going to return to form, have a really good year. Randy, what stands out here?
Yeah, I was gonna bait the question: is Lamar gonna be the one to do it with the 4,000 and 1,000? And then instantly you're like, no, we're gonna go back down to like 600 rushing yards. So that's honestly the part where he's not struggled, where he's gotten basically the 1,000 and not the 4,000. So I'd actually rather that happen. I mean, fantasy wise, I think everyone would rather have 300 more yards on the ground than make him QB1. But I think this offense, for it to really grow and for them to be their best version, he needs to be at about 4,000 yards, and Derrick Henry taking at least the early work in this offense. And yeah, he struggled over the last couple of years, but it's really because most of the games he's done the worst. He's had no running room at all. If he can get a hole, he's usually getting you at least a couple yards every play, if not breaking one off. So we really haven't seen him lose a step. I don't anticipate that this year, now with the amount of running lanes that this offense can give him. And yeah, I think it's probably disappointing for people with the pass catchers not stepping up as much as you'd hope with Lamar breaking that 4,000 mark. But really that's because, I mean, I know it's not in the graphic, but like you've told me, you have Isaiah Likely very high, so that means this is going to be a tight end heavy attack, which is what it probably should be.
Well, and I also think that Likely can function as their slot wide receiver when they need him to. Because I still don't love the wide receiver depth. I like I said, I really like Rashad Bateman. Nelson Aguilar doesn't really move the needle for me. I wasn't a huge Tez Walker fan, so that really doesn't move the needle for me. I like the Deontay Hardy signing, kind of, but also that's kind of a similar role to Aguilar where they don't move the needle for me. So I think you have to use Likely. I think you have to incorporate these running backs a little bit heavier for that. I don't think Lamar's going to win another MVP this year, but I think that it's still within his range of outcomes in future years because he is still very young and he's going to perform like this, I think, every year that he's out there now. So all in all, I think the Baltimore Ravens are a very good football team. I think that they can compete for a Super Bowl. It's just we need to see them get there with Lamar Jackson. I think that's going to be something that in his evolution and in this offense's evolution, we're going to have to see a little bit more when it comes to the playoffs. They only scored, I believe, 17 points in that AFC Championship loss. So that's not ideal, especially with such an efficient offense throughout the year. Hopefully they can get over the hump. Hopefully they can make the playoffs. I think they will, but I know you don't. So
I think they can, but
yeah, that's right. All right. Well, the answer, can Lamar Jackson win another MVP? Sure. Will he? I don't think so. If you're interested in more of this stuff, in the full projections for all these teams, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/theDevy We've got a Devy draft guide. We've got a ton of NFL content, Dynasty. Everything is coming at you over there. It's $5 a month. We would love it if you could support us. If not, and you just want to subscribe to the channel, do that. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think about this Baltimore Ravens thing. Yell at Randy a little bit. We'll understand for sure. But let us know what you think. Where did we go wrong? What did you like about this breakdown? Drop a like as well. Thank you guys for watching. We'll check you next time.